March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the general public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. See the instructions on the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. All votes are roll call votes. And in alignment with that, in a call to order, I will share which members are present. So that is co-chair Fred Clark, member Peter Most, member Joseph Method, member Bill Cook, and myself, Ananda Tim Payne. Shall we?
I will tell you, Christina let me know that she wouldn't be here this evening.
Great. We have 5 additional attendees. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the June minutes?
I move to approve the June minutes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, roll call vote, please. Fred Clark.
Aye.
Peter Most.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
And myself, aye. Is there a motion to approve the July minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Second. All over.
I do have a minor discussion point. In the July meeting, I believe I asked for some specific follow-up items for habitat in that section. The one that comes to mind was, I think I asked if we could have a future projection for when down payment assistance would fall in the timeline for the project for our future budget planning and CPC requests. So if we could amend the minutes to reflect that.
Draft minutes.
Assuming
I
other
do
people
remember
don't
that.
have any problems with that or think or recall differently.
No, I think that's correct.
Thank you.
Back on it.
I had to remember what it was like. I think I asked for something. What was it?
Can I just share my screen and maybe we can make the correction right now?
Sure.
Mind? I think this is it. These are the July minutes. Can you see that?
Yep.
Financial summary commented that this budget is not so much a commitment. Made a motion to step to budget.
I think it was before the budget discussion. It was in the reporting section, wasn't it?
Yes. Here on the first page, we have Erin O'Brien from Habitat and Mr. Rembold joining the meeting. Potential owners. Sorry, I don't mean to make you dizzy here. All right, I'll just add it.
Okay. roll call vote to approve the amendments, the minutes so amended. We'll start with you, Bill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Ananda, aye. All right, thank you for that, Fred. Reports on trust activities. Fred, do you have any reports related to the North Plain Road site?
I do. The infrastructure bids were opened. There were 3 responsive bids for the infrastructure. As you may recall, we had $3.2 million grant from Mass Works. The 2 of the bids were in the $2.7 million range. Subsequent to the bid opening, the engineer and Chris Rembold, acting as our procurement official, reviewed the low bid. It is from a company, Reifenberg, that's done a lot of work for the town very successfully, and they're going to go ahead with that project. So that's that.
That's great. There had been some concern that we might not get bids in the price range, and so getting 3 was a big success.
Yes, and the good news is that we have a 5 to 8% contingency to cover additional costs in unforeseen situations. So all around good news. The RFP requested that they be complete by the spring. So to the best of my knowledge, that is the schedule, that most of this work will be done within 6 to 9 months from now. Carolyn Viali and Aaron O'Brien are here as guests as well. And just before the meeting, Carolyn forwarded to me an outreach schedule. And I don't know whether it's appropriate to talk about it
Yes.
at this point or later. What do you
Yes, I think this is the place on the agenda. Is that something that they would like to present as part of the report?
I'm going to ask Carolyn to join here, and I'm going to see if I can quickly. Let's see, do I have that open?
You do that. Are there any questions about the first part of Fred's report from trust members? Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. So, yeah, we can enter that, although extra, we just signed up for a couple of more opportunities just today. So it's a very evolving thing. But it has all of the places that we're either going to be flyering or we've already attended, as well as the information sessions that we'll be having. So right now we have about 24 families that have shown interest in the project. 11 of them are from South County, and the rest are from Berkshire County. We don't have any applicants that are outside of Berkshire County. And the AMIs are ranging from about 60%, with 2 people hitting the 100% AMI. So that's sort of what we were kind of hoping to get, is in that range. And I would expect now that oh my God, Fred, sorry. That Fred just gave me the 6 to 9 month timetable to have it finished. I would imagine that you would not be asked for any funds until pretty close to that 9 month period, if you're thinking about grant requests.
9 months from now, so in this fiscal year?
Well, if he's saying the spring, our hope is as soon as the contract is signed with the bidder, the winning bidder, we're going to go down and have a meeting with them to see if there's any foundations that we can put in at the same time that they're doing road work. So that could change it. But once we have a conversation with them, I can send you out a detailed thing. I know that we already have 2 families that are approved for the project because they were the first and fourth bidders from the Grove Street lottery. So they're already in the top line. So they're coming up to pick house design and stuff in the next couple of weeks. And they'll start doing their partnership hours and all of that. And they just have to update some documents.
And can you walk us through where the outreach is that you were talking about?
Yeah, it's what we really focused on is places that have families, since that's sort of the size of the units that we're looking at. Then we also have we're going to be hopefully doing a presentation for the Chamber of Commerce down there and putting out an opportunity to have coffee with businesses and kind of go through what they can expect. I just met with somebody from one of the energy companies, and they're putting stuff in their payroll stuff about, like, if you make up to this, you could qualify for a Habitat home. I want to do the same thing for Fairview because I know that they're having a shortage issue. So we're going to try to focus on the businesses that we know will need permanent staffing, and also for people where families gather or people that really, fit a 3 to 4 bedroom thing. And then just anytime there's an event in South County, like we were at a job fair last week, and they're saying, really at the job fair, they're not looking for housing necessarily, but they want to hear about housing. So we don't have the table, we have our navigators navigating those things and just having conversations with people. So doing kind of a good outreach. We had thought about having an event at the Carpet Place across the street from the property. But when we talked to them about it, they didn't think it was a great idea. So we'll be looking for doing information sessions via Zoom and also in person.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Carolyn?
So I'm sharing the tentative schedule, and I can send that around after the meeting. Can you see it? I don't assume
What
that.
is on the screen is a list of it looks like it's a list of towns and communities throughout the state.
It looks like the CPA guidelines.
No, it's not. It shouldn't be.
Well,
Yeah, I thought I sent our schedule because we have people sign
Yeah,
up.
I mean, I have it.
I just think we're looking at the wrong thing on the screen, Carolyn.
I was on a Zoom yesterday and it was a very detailed thing, and they
Might just be
I can't
changing
see
which
it.
tab you have selected.
I thought I selected the correct one, but maybe I didn't.
Any comments or feedback for Carolyn?
Can I just ask a question that something I'm not
Yeah,
sure
please.
about?
This?
So on day one, you're qualifying somebody for their income. What happens during the period of the time should they earn more? Like let's say the Fairview employee gets raises during the period. They remain in the home for no matter what. Is that the way it works?
It usually what we're looking for is that somebody's not at the exact 100%, where if they earn a new dollar, that it's going to create a problem for them, because we do have, sort of somewhat strict guidelines. But the rule with Habitat has been, like, when you qualify is the start point, unless for some reason your income were to go down, like God forbid you lose a job or something like that, because it does require them to be able to get an affordable mortgage. But if they were to get like a 100% raise or, something kind of crazy, we would go back and have a conversation with them about, maybe there's another solution.
And Peter, was your question about the
Once they have tenancy, it's their home.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. Once they have purchased the home, they have purchased the home.
Okay.
So I was thinking more about the getting in the lottery, the queue to purchase.
Okay.
And just as a point of reference, we work with our Habitat homeowners a lot, and they almost always see a dramatic increase in their income. And I think that part of that is because their foundational supports are stable, that they can focus on the bigger things. And sometimes they go back and get additional education.
So can you see my screen now with the
Thank you.
schedule?
Yeah.
Yes.
I will send this around, and as Carolyn says, it's evolving. But as you can see, it's pretty intense, and there's quite a bit of contact.
Carolyn, separately from this, I'd love to be able to share share information about how folks in the nonprofit sector in South County. So so if there's something you could send to me at my work contact, I'd love to share that with my network there.
Okay, that'd be great.
Garfield has joined us. We have an additional member. Garfield Reed has come on here. So for the record,
Thank you.
that's all I have, and I believe that covers it for North Plain Road Prosperity Way.
Great. Fred, do you want to go ahead and promote Garfield? Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Aaron, for taking the time to come tonight.
Thank you, guys. I might hang on because I want to hear a little bit about the ADUs since they're now a statewide thing.
You are definitely welcome to.
Thank you.
And
You
that's
can, you can demote me now if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't see Garfield yet. I'll let you work on that, Fred.
He said he was rejoining as a panelist. He's there now. Wait, he still is an attendee. I promoted him, but
all right, I'm gonna let you work on that. In terms of the ADU, the good news is that I met this week with the town council and Chris Rembold. The edits are extremely minor. There's no substantial changes. He was really seeking to clarify intent and around a couple of phrases, and then seeking an okay to clarify that language to reflect intent. He had a few questions related to the rubric, none of which require changes. He wanted to understand our thinking about ranking properties with cell service and internet access as more favorable than those without. It was pretty straightforward. And then there's some edits he wants to make where we reference the definition of ADUs. He's going to align that with the language in the bylaws. So neither Chris or I think that there's anything that needs to come back to the trust. So we can move forward with putting next steps into action. So my hope is to be able to set up a meeting with Chris and Jane between now and the September meeting so that we can move the subcontracting component forward. And this also means Joe and Bill, you're up on the PR materials. And hopefully at the next meeting, things will be far enough along in a conversation with Construct that we could be talking about a application launch date.
Okay. Everything's pretty much ready to go.
Amazing. You just need the application launch date.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll stay targeted on that. Fred?
so is this going to be an RFP that goes out?
No, as we had previously discussed, we will subcontract. It will be under it's under the amount that has to go out in a full bid process. So it will
Yeah,
be
5,000.
Yeah.
5,000 is the amount.
no, that's the amount is higher than that. But anyway, yeah, it's under the amount that has to go through a full bid process where, oh, I see what you were saying, Joe. Sorry. So what we're doing is we're subcontracting with Construct for the application process as well as the verification process. And Peter, what I mean by the verification process is when the ADUs are completed and ready to be rented, Construct will verify the income levels, that the income levels are qualifying. And in this case, in this program, verification will happen at the time of the initial lease. And then when there's a new tenant, but it won't be verification each year. Any other questions?
Yes, because I've been terrible and have missed some meetings and just kind of forgot them, I guess, or didn't have them on the calendar. Nonetheless, is this something that's happening soon, or we're just putting down all the plans, et cetera, in the floor plan and everything like that? So when they're ready to go, it will be ready to go.
Yeah, so I think, you know, in our June and July meetings, we had discussed how to move it forward because it had gotten stuck with town council. So now that we've freed it up and we have movement on that end, I'm hopeful that we're looking at a fall date for an application cycle. And so if that were the case, we'd see at some point in the fall, applications would be open to residents of the town who might want to create an ADU on their property. And Construct would set the timeline for the review on that process based on their staff capacity. And as soon as those selections are made, then those town residents will be able to move forward with actually building.
Thank you.
And so over the process that we've been in, I've had interest from various members of the public, just reaching out, asking if they can have a copy of what we've written or when, details. And so there is interest. And I would say so far the people who've reached out are folks who are thinking about putting some kind of unit in the house that they also live in. So it might be taking a floor that and sectioning it off as an apartment or something like that. So just to give you a sense of where interest seems to be right now.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Is there anything town council has to do at all for us to proceed? And if so, did the town council indicate how long that might take?
Yeah. He has to get us the edits, and the timeline he gave Chris and I was by the end of the week. He also suggested setting a follow-up meeting up with Chris and I to just review those edits. I mean, it literally took 15 minutes, the meeting that we had on Monday. So I don't anticipate there being major roadblocks. I think that we're actually finally moving. Okay, let's move to other reports. In terms of the financial report, there are no updates since the last meeting. I presented our budget report to CPC this month. That went well. When we move into the budget discussion, we can talk a bit more about that meeting, I think, related to the CPC application process. Fred, did you want to report on the emergency rental assistance program, or I can summarize that? Did you all see that report from Jane at Construct in the packet?
I'm not sure I sent the whole report, but I think I sent the invoice.
I think you did send the whole report. In the last quarter of the fiscal year, there were 6 assists in Great Barrington, 2 of which were funded by the Affordable Housing Trust. In total, they reached 17 people and 6 landlords. There's a balance of around 15,000 on the grant, and Jane would like us to consider program direction. Construct is considering prioritizing their tenants with rental assistance needs and adding mortgage assistance for seniors. If this is something we'd like to discuss with them, I'm wondering if we want to make this an agenda item for September.
My only concern is that they can only, our funds can only go to Great Barrington
That's-
residents.
yeah.
You know.
How is that a concern for you?
I think that we have to, I think that this program is overdue for review, and it needs perhaps a rehaul. It really was most effective during the COVID pandemic with helping out service workers and others there. What also Jane talked about in her narrative was that some of the people that are coming to them are very much over their heads, and a grant wouldn't be enough to make them up to date, so that they're finding people that are more desperate than just 1 or 2 months behind in arrears. I think we need a major overhaul. I think we need a better understanding of who's responsible. I think this program.
What do you mean who's responsible?
I think this program's continued on with kind of a handshake and a nod for a couple of extensions. And I think that we need to have a better, a written memorandum of understanding of who does what the selection criteria are, and when the periodic reporting is. I think we've done something. I think the reporting is much better than it used to be, but I think that we need a full understanding of how the program works.
So would you like to make this an agenda item for September?
I'd like to discuss it at some point. I'm not sure that September is the best time for that, but we can put it there if you like.
Other people's thoughts?
I think it's probably due for review. I don't think there's great urgency.
I would agree with that. I think it's a wonderful, I think it's a wonderful program. I think it's been very effective and very helpful. But what Jane's telling us now is that it's less targeted or less effective right now than it has been in the past.
Fred, can you explain why that is? As what your understanding is?
I really can't. I think that during the pandemic, there was a lot of people who were thrown topsy-turvy from the economic effects, particularly in the service industry. And this program served as a bridge to get people through that. Now, I think that I'm not going to say that the rental market is stabilized, but I think that there's less people who are being caught up in that whirlwind that was going on at that time.
So is the question then whether on an ongoing basis there should be funds set aside for rental assistance rather than deploying the dollars elsewhere? I guess I'm not sure what
No,
presumably there are going to come times when there are going to be individuals for whatever reason that will need rental assistance, and
Sure.
And presumably there'll be a recession just around the corner, as there always is.
And maybe it's just a magnitude issue. Maybe it's fine to have 2 assists during a quarter, and we helped out 2 families, and maybe that's good enough.
Yeah. So Fred, to me, I did not read the report as indicating there wasn't need. I read the report as indicating there is need, that the need might look a little differently than it has in the past, in the sense that there's by the time families are getting to them for rental assistance, their arrears is more than 2 months of rental assistance can stabilize. And if I would be interested in having Jane come in the future and speak a little bit more about what she covered in the report, because I'd like to know more about the difference between a total of 6 assists in Great Barrington, but 2 being trust assists. I'm assuming that has to do with income qualification. But I would remind all of us that we just, in 2 months of budget discussions, discussed allocating funds for this in the coming year as a priority and made that decision. I don't see, like, I think that if you want to raise the issue of changing that, we should at least be asking Jane to come and speak with us.
Sure. You know, I think that the program is overdue for a review. I think that we need to understand it a little better. There was anecdotal stories that came to us last spring that some people had reached out to Construct and they were told there were no funds available for Great Barrington for rental assistance. Now, we heard that secondhand at best, and it was completely anecdotal. Maybe the person lived in Monterey, not in Great Barrington. Maybe they didn't income qualify, or maybe they never really asked and they just, you know.
No, Fred, I knew of one person who was in Great Barrington. So and we followed up with Jane, and that's when we cleared up the reporting, because Jane had thought that the money was spent down, and that's why we got it all updated. And as soon as that reporting got updated, grants started being made again. So I don't think that your thought that
Well,
continuing the process of moving from the better reporting to a clear MOU, I think all of that's a good idea. I just am kind of shocked to hear a discussion of maybe taking this off the table.
oh, I don't want to take it off the table. No, not at all. I want it to be revised so that it's more effective. I'm not convinced that giving it all to Construct's people is the best way to go or the most fair and equitable. But I'd like to be convinced. I was frankly surprised that Jane didn't come to us and say, hey, I've run out of money, because I consistently asked her if to give us an update on the funding and to let us know if she needed additional funding. I said that to every contact I made with Construct about this program.
So is your concern that last winter communication wasn't how you would like to see it between Construct and the trust?
Yes, absolutely. But also that Construct lost track of the funding.
So, yeah, so I think that if that's the origin of the concern, and we don't feel that it is resolved with the reporting that we've put in place, then the next thing we should be doing is asking Jane to come and be in communication with us on a quarterly basis.
And maybe we need to do more outreach. Maybe they need to do more outreach too. At the very least, I would like to have a better understanding of the outreach that they do.
Yeah.
Do they just wait for people to come in the door?
So and so that's why I'm suggesting September, because what we sounds like we want to do is talk with Jane about this report. So we should do it as close to the time as the report.
I will ask, or you can ask Jane to attend.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
And can we have a stipulation that every time I ask a question, I don't have to say, I apologize for not knowing this?
Yeah, just
Okay.
ask.
Can somebody contact Great Barrington or the Affordable Housing Trust Fund directly? Or can they only contact Construct when they need rental assistance?
It has to go directly to Construct.
And
we would refer them.
And
But there's no
on
reason
our,
we couldn't be advertising that, or the town couldn't be advertising. Like, there could be a link on our website, there could be, and maybe there is, Bill would know that. And there could be a link on the town website.
Yeah, that was my next question. Yeah.
I think that the website directs people to Construct.
Yeah.
I could check, but I'm pretty sure that's.
The way we've operated this program most recently is we've voted an allocation, typically either $25,000 or $50,000 as a fund that can be drawn from. Those funds stay in the town until they're invoiced, but we've allocated them. In this case, it was a $25,000 allocation, of which 15,900 is left.
No, I think, wasn't it a 50,000 allocation in April 2023?
Yeah, I think it was 50.
Yeah.
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 So
it's basically a cost reimbursement contract.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, Garfield, please.
Okay, because I have to plead ignorance as well. But for something made me think that I had thought last time I heard we were moving away from rentals and we were going to focus on homeowning.
We're doing both.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got both. We've done this past fiscal year, we did 3 down payment assistance applications, which were all of the loans we received requests for. And we've allocated funding for at least 2 in the coming fiscal year, or in the fiscal year we're in.
2.
Down payment loans.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on emergency rental assistance program report? Great, let's move on to the annual report. Fred provided us with his draft. Thank you for putting that together, Fred. The context for this is that the town issues an annual report and requests that departments and committees provide a small report of highlights from the previous year. And so that's what Fred has put together. I think I'd like to ask for, are there any edits for clarification or other comments people would like to make? Mostly, I'd just like to appreciate Fred for the work you put in on this and the time.
it's basically just a list of who was on the committee, what programs we did. And it becomes the permanent record as part of the bound town report. Okay, we don't really.
I have one question for you, Fred, was I just wanted to confirm that you did cover the 3 down payment loans we made.
I'm sharing my screen if you can see it now.
Could you make it a little bigger?
The third graph covers the financial tracking and CPA conversation. The 5th paragraph talks about work with Habitat. So the North Plain Road and Grove Street, and mentions the rental assistance program. It talks about the RFP and the 2 grant requests, one of which we approved. And it talks about our discussion of ADUs, but I didn't see the down payment assistance.
Yeah, I will quickly add that.
Then my only other suggestion is that in the last line of paragraph 3, where it says how all CPA funds have been used, it says show how all CPA funds have been used and the remaining balances. The first time I read it, it wasn't absolutely clear to me. The first time I read it as that all CPA funds had been used and that there was a remaining balance. So I thought that might just be something that could be slightly tweaked for clarification.
How about allocated instead of used?
Just to make clear that we're not saying that all of the funds were used. We're saying that there was a remaining balance.
Well, how about they able to show how all CPA funds have been allocated?
I mean, I think it could say the tracking tool shows CPA fund allocation and remaining balances.
Okay.
I had one question. The last line, presumably that's to award the 23,000 to the trust for fiscal year 24-25. And I don't know if that needs to be clarified, but you might want to clarify that.
The new tracking. Okay, we'll just do this. Do you want it to be the new tracking tool shows? All CPA funds have been.
Yeah.
And the balance is remaining.
And I think Peter's suggestion to clarify in the last line that the 23,000 is allocated for FY25 would be valuable. Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? We're almost out of reporting, people. We have about 45 minutes left. I'm wondering if people are open to tabling the report on the Affordable Homes Act.
It's really just informational. It's not necessary that people see it.
Yeah. That's available to all of us, and maybe we could let Fred know if we'd like to have further discussion, and that can go on a future agenda.
Fine by me.
Great.
Yeah.
That's okay with you, Bill?
Yeah, I have a copy.
Yeah. Peter, Garfield, thumbs up.
Yes.
Moving into old business. In terms of the budget discussion and CPA application, I guess I'll start with confirming. Let me share. I'll share my screen. Especially since Garfield probably hasn't gotten to see this yet. So this is what we've discussed. This is the result of our discussions in June and July. We're really, for the purpose of this conversation, if you look at this yellow column, this is what we agreed to allocate, with the understanding that this is not binding, but it would take a discussion and perhaps a vote among us to change this. So my question at this point is, does anybody see a need to revisit or reopen discussion about these allocations at this point in time? Okay. So with that said, in terms of the CPA application process, the committee set the application timeline for the coming year. And I'll stop sharing because we would probably do better being able to see each other. There will be the first step in the application will be due in November, and the final phase of the application will be due in December. With they've set aside a couple of dates, and at one of those dates we will need to present our application. And there's a public hearing in September. The committee is sounding like they want to prioritize town projects. I know one of the things that's happening is there were several items that departments had hoped to put forward in the FY25 budget, including things like there's a lot of infrastructure repairs, not just the bridges, but the old the courthouse, Mason Library, so on and so forth, the skate park.
So what do they fall under, historic preservation or recreation?
Both. Like I would say the town projects fall under both. Jeremy suggested a framing or advocated for a framing that he also sees the trust as that it sounded like he would be interested in the committee looking at funding the trust rather than private projects. I think the concern, and I think that's a good way for us to frame our work. I think the concern for me was hearing some members of the committee say, I'm tired of affordable housing. We've done that. So I don't,
Has it been solved?
they're tired of the projects. I don't know that it's been solved. That person. But I'm imagining that I'm imagining it might be valuable for us to include some basic data that helps us communicate the scope of the problem locally and why it should be a priority. And then also maybe framing our ask a little bit softer. So to say, to push for, given the scale of the crisis and our role to advocate for affordable housing in this town, we have to tell you that the right thing to do is to allocate the maximum amount, which is roughly 80%. But we recognize that the town has some significant infrastructure needs. And so we'd like to ask that, if you're not going to look at that, would you fund us at least an even third of the funds?
No, it's my understanding that town infrastructure is not something that CPA should be funding.
I agree,
Yeah.
but that's not
If
what
you
they
read
talk
the
about.
law, that's one of the things that's kind of excluded.
Can you say more? Do you see that as including like the Mason Library restoration and the skate park?
No, but if you're talking about the courthouse and bridges, well,
No, I'm not talking about the courthouse and bridges. I think that the town's going to push what they can there, which is like the Mason Library, the skate park. Fred, did you want to contribute?
I wanted to mention that there was at least one member who got a few nods that said that she would prefer to fund projects and not programs, and basically has consistently over the years wished to have supervision and details of a specific project for a specific funding amount going forward. And I think that we need to be sensitive to that. And I think we can use that information to help inform our application. Not that we can basically say our affordable housing is going to fund this project on 123 Elm Street, but perhaps we can talk about it. I've over the years tried to educate and say that we basically run programs, that we're different than anybody else because we're appointed by town meeting and answerable to the town and meet under open meeting law in procurement situations. But it hasn't really resonated very well. I think that the difference is that we run programs by and large, and they're much more interested in the concrete of getting their arms around a project with parameters.
I mean, I think a couple of things. I did also hear that. I also noticed that same member when Karen pushed that same member around our budget report on how we'd use funds and are presenting our budget plan. She responded favorably to being able to see how we were thinking about funding and what we were doing with it. I mean, I do think at the end of the day, it's about counting the votes. And if we can't convince enough members of the committee to see it our way, that's a problem. I also think that I think we can add detail, like similar to the report, the narrative report we did in April, that we can include the sample of the RFP, the ADU proposal. Like we have a lot more robust materials around the so-called programs we're running. And we have some really compelling examples of what happens when we can respond mid-year to a change in a project. But I agree, it's, it's a gamble, and we saw what happened when we gambled this past year.
Can I ask a question again? Can't we look at them as being one and the same? We have programs, but we are doing projects when we are putting together our programs, are we not? Is it not kind of the same? You have to have the money to do, you have to have the program to do the projects, and the projects to have the money. I mean, I don't know. Am I way out of line or no?
Oh, you're talking sense to me, but I think that this particular vein of thought on the committee is like they
need to move up and get with the program.
They want an address and a building and a family moving in.
We need to be realistic. This isn't, that's not how it works. They should know that.
I would be love to give them the information that they want. The problem is often we're talking 12 to 18 months of lead time before that money is spent or acted on.
We're talking 18 months of lead time before that money is between when we apply and when that money. Yeah, it's a significant gap. So
we spend it in February of 26.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is our annual budget, the whole operating funds that only begin in July of 25 and have to continue for 12 months.
Yeah. But I feel like we have made good shifts and inroads with more members of the committee than we have in the past. And so, that might be a valuable thing for us to follow up on between now and the November application date is where we have relationship with committee members, having some conversations, and maybe reaching out to some of the committee members that are either skeptical or seem to be shifting and having some preliminary conversations. But
is it out of line to have those skeptical people come to a meeting, or us be prepared to have them come to a meeting and then lay out a plan that they can't refuse, if you will?
Well, I think they would say that's what their application meetings are for. And their reporting meetings. I mean, that's what I've been doing in going to these meetings and reporting to them, is having those conversations in a meeting setting.
So how do we move forward with an application? Do we want to continue this? Or, I think we're in agreement with our budget. And I think that can and should inform our application. going forward. You know, the budget that we talked about is basically a fiscal 25 budget. And the application that we're talking about is basically a fiscal 26.
Correct.
So, you know, are we simply going to extend everything that we planned on doing in 25 one more year, or are there other things that we'd like to, you know, talk about for an initiative? I mean, our RFP lapsed. We did give one grant, I think it was, and we did talk about bringing that back. It's not, I don't see it as possible in fiscal year 25. It's not budgeted, but it's a discussion that we can have for 26.
Why don't we do this? Why don't, you know, why don't we have a timeline where we aim to have, so the first part of the application for people who have not been through this before is a one-page overview. So it's pretty straightforward, and so I'm thinking, like, what if we have a plan that in October we're looking at an outline of that and confirming that our approach and argument is, like, we're all on board with the approach and argument that we're making. And between now and September, there's a couple people on the committee that I would like to talk to and see what their read of the situation is, and that could further inform any discussion of strategy on our end. Fred, I know there were some folks you were in touch with last year around this time on the committee. I don't know if there's still committee members.
I can talk to Jim Mercer.
Yeah.
I wasn't successful talking to Rich Geiler. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
I wasn't successful. And
Well,
other members are no longer on the committee that I spoke with.
Rich's concerns were pretty specific to what they perceived as management issues related to both the town staff not providing minutes to the committee and not being able to follow the financial tracking clearly, which we've solved both of those. I didn't get a sense of Rich weighing in around the question of funding us only for a project versus funding us as the town entity that does affordable housing.
I also think that cleaning up some of the older funds helped.
Yeah.
One of the issues they've had is they didn't want money out there for years.
Yeah. So how does that sound to folks? Any thoughts before we move on? Peter, please.
One question. I think I recall hearing at an earlier meeting that we were going to try to match the development of North Plain Road with grants that would be needed by first-time purchasers, so that when the first 6 are available, we might have $150,000 at 25 per to make available. That's the thrust of what we're doing here, right? Part of what we're doing here.
Yes, and so our application last year, we made a shift from asking for just one thing or to asking them to fund the trust to do all of our core activities, which includes that. So last month we discussed continuing with that strategy, and that would include funding the down payment assistance program. And it is my thought that we should be asking for enough funding in that line to match the North Plain Road project. Yes.
I also got an email the other day from a realtor, a mortgage broker who we've worked with in the past, asking if there was funds available that she may have a client outside of the North Plain Road project. We've allocated $50,000 this year between now and July of 2025. So we can do a couple. We may not be able to,
I mean, my
align
hope
everything.
is that the North Plain Road project will align with the next fiscal year. That would,
It mostly will.
do people feel comfortable moving from this item into new business?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Peter, I'm going to turn this over to you and Joe. This next item is just reviewing the letter you two crafted to send to the planning board. And I think this discussion can center on any discussion around the content or suggestions for edits for clarification. And anything you might want to say to introduce it, Peter or Joe.
Yeah. Do you want to share the screen? So we can look at the letter.
Do you have that primed, or would you like me to?
I don't have it set up yet. I can.
I have it available. Do you want me to share my screen to do that?
I can make you a co-host that will allow you to share the screen.
It says share screen at bottom, but sure.
Well, you need to be.
I need to be special.
You need permission.
You're now a co-host. You should be able to share your screen.
That's exciting. Here we go. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah, larger if you can.
Yeah,
Print could be
bigger.
small.
Are you saying you want to make it larger?
Yes, please.
Yes.
The problem is I have a 34-inch screen. Let me ask you this. Hold on. If I do
just
that,
inside
is
the
that-
Word document, magnify it.
well, sure.
Yeah.
Is that better? Let me ask you, if I do this, how about this? How's that?
That's all right.
That do it for you, Garfield?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
That's good. So good.
Okay.
Right?
Joe, you want to take the first part and I'll take the second part?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So, we had that constructive conversation with them. The people who were there were sympathetic. All the architects were gone for when we presented. But the other people were sympathetic. And yeah, so when we went there, I was presenting sort of neutrally as we're just asking questions. And so I guess the proposal here is to move beyond that and say, we have no power here, but if you would like, it would be nice if you sponsored changes to the language to remove the 8.6.
And 8.6 refers to
8.6. I should have had it pulled up, but it's 8.6 specifically says
it defines mobile homes, correct?
no, 8.6 it's the thing that says you cannot have a mobile home except in an emergency. So when you look at the table of when you look at the zoning map, or the zoning table with all the uses, it for mobile home, it goes across and it disallows it in some zones, and then for the other zones it has select board with select board planning or some select board approval, and then it has a little note that says C 8.6, and then when you go to 8.6, it says essentially the select board can only approve somebody to live in it for it's like less than 12 months. So it's like it's specific language that says essentially that that mobile homes are effectively banned as permanent residences in all zones.
Great. And Peter, did you want to?
Yeah, so in section 11 of the bylaw, it provides, as you'll hope you can see on your screen, the definition of a movable tiny house. And in D, it defines it as having not less than 150 and no more than 400 square feet of habitable living space, excluding lofts. I can't explain why this is, but I spend more time than you might imagine looking at movable tiny houses. They're really fascinating. And what I have found is that the marketplace and our zoning bylaw, there's a mismatch because many movable tiny houses are now manufactured to 500 square feet. Mobile homes, 500 square feet is the threshold typically for a mobile home, and it is now essentially the ceiling for a movable tiny house. So the request here is that the planning board consider an upward revision on the maximum square footage so that our zoning bylaw conforms with what the marketplace is producing, which is a 500 square foot movable tiny house.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Joe or Peter?
How do you see this going forward? What are you looking to do?
My understanding is that we're looking to send this letter to the planning board, and basically we're asking the planning board to consider these matters and take action. And our task right now as a trust, as a body, is to decide if we as a body will send this letter.
Right.
So
I'm
okay with it. I have one minor edit in the first paragraph where it says in the second sentence, if the planning board agrees for the need for these changes,
it says with the need for these changes.
Yes, sorry, with the need for these changes. It hasn't actually specified what the changes are yet. So if that could just be clarified, I don't need to see it again, but if that could be clarified in that paragraph. And then for sending it, and I would second your motion, Bill.
Yeah, so I mean, what I could do there is pull in. So I was trying not to, duplicate what's in the other letter, but I could pull in the specific items from the letter.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect.
Can I ask like a little devil's advocate thing? And who's this going to benefit? How does it benefit anyone? And is it, is it a similar? Yeah, those are my questions, I guess.
Who would it benefit?
In other words, how are we showing them, or are they going to see that this is a benefit? This is something they really should do because other than just asking, we have something actually concrete in mind, etc. And I may be off because I missed the meetings, but
I agree with you completely, Garfield.
So yeah, I mean the problem is that the other with regard to the 8.6 and the mobile homes, the arguments are sort of in the other letter. So like that, and that had like 5 items, and it was basically like in light of this, in light of this.
May I make a suggestion, Joe? Then
yeah.
You where it says clarify this, could it say the board agrees with the need for the changes that are outlined in our letter of X attached here too?
Yeah, we can do that.
I think that it should be spelled out as just a couple of bullet points here summarizing what those benefits are. I think that when you make a request like this, you need to give reasons why it's an affordable housing trust issue and why you think it'll be beneficial to make this.
Could,
Absolutely.
yeah, so what I'm hearing is that that exists in the previous letter. And that what's important is that that context is communicated with this letter.
I would like to see this letter be able to stand on its own. You know, perhaps that's what I would say.
You
Yeah.
have to send this out soon, can we?
Just procedurally, I would hate to see us spend 2 months on this letter when I think, I'd like to, is there a way we could delegate this to Peter and Joe, knowing that those reasons exist, that we've already approved them, and ask that they can be communicated with this letter, and then leave it in their hands as to the best way to do that?
I'm okay with that as long as you can see it before it goes. That's my request.
I'm
You want to see it?
reluctant to keep sending them letters on these sort of issues, because I feel like I think that there is a significant amount of overlap between the housing trust and the planning board, but I'm not so sure that it's reciprocal, that the planning board sees that as well, which is why I believe you need to give them rationale for why the housing trust is involved.
Right.
Okay. So to be clear, the rationale is another letter. So we can pull that. I mean, we could read that letter now if you want to, but like that's what we would be making those arguments. I think the question is whether the board as a whole is comfortable standing behind those rationales.
I mean, we already voted and approved that we were comfortable standing behind those rationales.
And I asked that this not get set back another month while we're looking at the same thing that's already been reviewed previously.
So I'd like to make a motion that this letter be revised
Absolutely.
by Peter and Joe to specify the changes requested related to 8.6 and include the previous information approved by the trust as to why this is a trust matter and how reviewing both of these items is a benefit to the town related specifically to affordable housing.
And I have one request. Is it possible or necessary, or can we make one letter or two letters one? So no one likes to read a lot of stuff.
Okay, so Peter,
yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of resistance to the idea of sending the second letter as an attachment to this letter. Would you be open to revising this letter to include the relevant portions of the previous letter?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We'll combine them.
So my motion, one letter with all the information. Joe and Peter are authorized to send it with those changes. Would anybody second that motion?
I'll second it. Oh,
Great. All in favor, we'll start with Bill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Fred,
I'm going to abstain. I'm
Garfield,
not happy, but
I'm all right with that. So yes, aye, yeah.
and myself, aye. With that, I'd like
May I ask a question? Once that is accomplished, what is are we returning it to you, the co-chairs, who will forward it to the planning board, or will you like Joseph or I to forward it to the planning board?
Joe, how did we do it last time? Do you remember?
I sent it.
Brad sent it. Yeah.
So then we'll do that again.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a little housekeeping thing, May. Sorry to be such a pain. Do we need to note for the meetings that the vote was so and so with one abstention? Yes.
The letter often will say voted for, voted,
Well, for our own minutes, I guess, and when we have to turn.
Yeah,
them over.
because we did the roll call vote, Garfield, it's recorded in that way.
Okay, that's fine.
But
Thank you.
yes, it was all in favor with one abstention. Thank you.
I'd like to suggest maybe passing over the AMI limits.
I
You all
accept.
had
your
them,
suggestion.
and Bill has posted them to the website.
Great.
Mhm.
And that's just an annual thing that gets updated.
And I'd like to suggest we table the handbook. I would really like to get us into the executive session before we have to
Oh,
lose
excellent.
at 8.
Yes.
Yes,
You need to do citizen speak before the executive session.
yes,
I
we
do.
do.
I do. Is there any trustee speak?
No.
Great. Seeing none. Media speak time. Seeing none. Citizen speak time. James.
Good evening, board. James Garzone, 84 North Plain Road. Just want to make a couple of comments. One, to confirm about the CPA, as you said, it can't be anything for roads or bridges, because I did ask that question actually earlier this week. Secondly, as we all know, the budget for the town for the next year to 3 years is going to be very tight, with possibly a new school, with the debt repayment that, we're going to be taking out more money to pay for our infrastructure. So my point is, if we don't get money from the CPA or CPC committee or a affordable housing program, I don't know how successful we are going to get with projects. So I'm hoping the CPC will be more amenable, based on all the great work you've done in the past year, to fund your committee as a program versus a project. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, James, and thank you for your advocacy on behalf of affordable housing in the town.
If I may just stick my little 2 cents, we will have the next 3 years, because we still have to deal with DHWW. We still have to deal with the bridge situation, but we also have to deal with the pot situation. There, in the next 3 years, I'm sure something's going to shake down. We're going to have to pay something, I'm sure.
Great. All right, thank you. So we will move into executive session. Executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purpose: to discuss strategy with respect to possible real estate acquisition. I make a motion that the Affordable Housing Trust will meet in executive session pursuant to that strategy with respect to possible real estate acquisition, because an open meeting discussion may have a detrimental effect on the legal notion of a negotiation of affordable housing trust fund. And I need a second and a roll call vote.
Second.
Thank you, Peter. Fred,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Joe, you're
Sorry.
muted.
Sorry. I.
Bill,
Aye.
Garfield,
Aye.
and me, I. Fred, do we need to let the public know that we will adjourn the meeting at the end of executive session? We will not return to.
Yes, we will not return to public sessions.
And not return to public session. Okay.
At this time, I'm stopping the recording of the meeting.